vases were exported to the entire Mediterranean region, from the Near East to the Atlantic Ocean, and from the Iberian Peninsula offers us an eloquent illustration of this process. From the 8th to the 4th centuries BC, vases from different production centers were imported by Phoenician or Greek traders. The Iberian world transformed their use in the habitats and the necropolises. Thus, the crater used at Athenian symposia here served as a funerary urn. The accumulation of Greek vases and images became a symbol of social prestige. The collection of the National Archaeological Museum was begun in the 18th century with vases brought from Naples by Charles III and Charles IV. In the 19th century, it grew significantly with the addition of collections amassed by the Marquis of Salamanca, Thomas Asensi and Teodoro Stützl, and artifacts brought back from the expedition to the eastern Mediterranean aboard the frigate Arapiles, and in the 20th century it was further enriched by the acquisition of the collection of José Luis Párez Fisa. The vases were thrown on the pottery wheel, set out to dry, decorated, and then fired. Potters and painters work alongside each other in the same workshop. In large cities like Athens and Corinth, the workshops were located in specific neighborhoods, such as the Kerameikos district in Athens, and attracted a large number of craftsmen, masters, and apprentices. Some Greek vases bear the signatures of potters and painters. Potters use the word poiesen, made, while painters use graphen, painted. However, vases by anonymous potters and painters are far more common. Sources with names identify these artists based on certain features, such as the name of a figure depicted on one of their vases, Achilles painter, the name of the city where one of the painters is located, Madrid painter, the name of one of their stylistic traits, Mannerist painter. So here there are different items. Let's see if this can be read. It is not easy, I guess. Around 3000 BC, there were a large number of settlements in the Cyclades, a cluster of islands in the middle of the Aegean Sea. After 2000 BC, most of these settlements were uninhabited. So this is a really old one. 3000, 2800. By around 1600 BC, aristocratic groups controlled the territories of mainland Greece from imposing fortified palaces. Mycenas, Argos, Tyrannus, and Pylos were governed by princes with political and military power, lords of war and trade. Mycenaean civilization reached the height of its splendor and widest sphere of cultural influence between the 14th and 13th century BC. Its trading network extended from Asia Minor to the Iberian Peninsula. Mycenaean vessels certified to the degree of sophistication achieved by master potters, who fashioned objects for everyday use as well as luxury items to display the wealth and power of the ruling class. Pottery and treasures served the tombs of noblemen and kings. So, all this comes from Mycenas, basically, Mycenae. This is from a later time. In the 7th and 6th century, Prosperous trading towns and ports such as Corinth, Eubea, Miletus, Samos, and Rhodes became the leading economic and political centers in Greece. Their business contacts and colonies in the Black Sea and the Mediterranean imported knowledge, styles, and influences in a highly original way. Painters of the motley Corinthian bases began to use exotic motifs, lions, panthers, and mythical animals surrounded by lush vegetation inspired by Oriental iconography. Age of Tyrants. Rulers like the tyrant Pisistratus and his sons beautified the city with splendid monuments, organized grand celebrations and theatrical, poetic and sporting competition. This was also the heyday of Attic pottery, in the exquisite black figure style. Vases painted in the new style, depicting gods and heroes, were exported all across the Mediterranean. The century of democracy. At the beginning of the 5th century BC, Athens spearheaded the war effort and victory that united all of Greece against Persian imperialism. Consolidation of democracy and Pericles' leadership skills gave Athens political and cultural supremacy over the other Greek cities. Parthenon was the symbol of its power. Phidias sculpted the gods, and Socrates questioned them. I didn't know Socrates questioned the gods. This was the high point of Attic vase painting and the red figure style. The new harmonious conception of the human figure was accompanied by an extolment of the new aesthetic and civic ideas. As the century came to a close, the Peloponnesian Wars brought an end to Athenian hegemony. 30 years of fighting with Sparta left the city defeated and ruined. Mundo Cosmopolitas, a cosmopolitan world from the 4th century BC until the Roman conquest in 150 BC. Greece's political and cultural influence spread across the entire known world. Alexander the Great conquered Persia, Egypt, Babylon, and India. Individualistic, multicultural Hellenism was born. A new concept of citizenship was embraced by both East and West. The universal Hellas, an explosion of creativity, self-criticism, science, and the quest for knowledge. Qué bonita está Píxida, dice. Píxida. Muy bonita. Ritón. At the heart of the ideological, ethical, social, and political discourse of Greek society was the need to define Greek identity. Social structure, civilization versus savagery, gender system, male versus female, and concept of ethnic identity, Greek versus barbarian, were all rooted in this primary definition. Oh well, a little bit of feminism to teach us. Yeah. Let's see the items. See, as I said, we are here to see the pieces, to look upon the past, not to question it. If it was men who mainly did this, then it's fine. And it's men who mainly did this. It's a big applause for them. But it's not. It's the whole society that comes up with these things and works in it and does everything. Also, giving birth to people, which is not a minor issue. Without it, there is nothing. So, the symposium. These are items for the banquet symposium, or depictions of symposium with flute players. That the 13th, it says painter of Suessula, Attica, for 2410 before Christ. Let's drink while wait for the lamps. One finger is already the day. Raise the cups, the painted cups. Dionysius gave men the wine to forget pain. Pour it now, mix it. Fill the vases. And that a cup pushes the other. War, the most noble destiny, it says here. That's a mask of Dionysus, 520 before Christ. The theater, theatron, spectacular entertainment. The tragedy of Orestes and Electra. How often I bewailed my hapless sire, my mother and her mate Aegisthus, cleft his head with murderous axe, as Gutman fell an oak. O home of Hades and Persephone, O Hermes, who leads to hell, come, help me, avenge the murder of my sire. Sophocles, Electra, 94-115. So this is here. Okay, brother. Oedipus. Let's see how this. Let's see how it looks. So, the tragedy of Oedipus. That's the Sphinx. Okay? Ah, wretched that I am, so it all came true. A man who stands revealed as cursed by birth, cursed by his lover, and cursed by the murderer, where I should not kill. It's the mask. Okay, the Sphinx putting the enigma to Oedipus. Which which animal in the morning or at dawn walks with 4 legs, at midday with 2, and at the evening with 3. Is it that in English? Probably. The stage, professional actors. Okay. Wearing thick soled buskins and colorful tunics disguise themselves in startling masks and striking wigs. They use elegant or lewd costumes to identify the characters as either tragic or comic. The chorus sang and danced in the paved central circle orchestra, while the actors delivered their lines in the raised proscenium. The coins. The most widely circulated unit of currency in the ancient Greek world was the drachma. However, weight standards and value scales varied from one region to another. The 3 most important standards were the Attic, the Aegean and the Corinthian, which produced Athenian owls, turtles from the island of Aegina, and Pegasus coins from the city of Corinth, respectively. Wow. El búho de Atenas. This rare piece from Akragas, one of the richest and most powerful cities in Sicily, is an excellent example of how painstaking detail and careful observation of nature can be combined to create a splendid rendering of an object as small as a coin. The crab, one of the city's symbols, the giant fish, and 2 tiny mollusks stand out strikingly against the smooth background, as if arranged on a seafood platter. Philistis de Siracusa. Philistis, the wife of Hieron II, tyrant of Syracuse. Heracles. Aeschines. The heart of the Athenian democratic government was the assembly, which included all males with a right to citizenship, the Boule, or Council of 500, and the Prytanes. Its executive officers prepared the laws, and the assembly, which met in the Sphinx, enacted them. The judges and juries of the court, called Eliaia, were drawn from the assembly. The archons of magistrates handed down political, financial, and judicial decisions, and the strategoi supervised the city's military defense. We have a political regime that doesn't envy the laws of the neighbors, receives the name of democracy because it's governed by majority. According to the law, everyone has equal rights. Our city is a lesson for all Greece. Thucydides' History of the War of Peloponnesus. Military service between 18 and 20. Athens, 514 BC. Harmodius and Aristogeiton slay Hipparchus, brothers of the Athenian tyrant Hippias. Both are caught and executed. After Hippias is overthrown, the newly established democratic government makes them heroes of freedom. Their legendary feat is immortalized in stone in the Agora of Athens. The myth of Heracles gone mad in the theater. This scene depicts a theatrical production. On the stage, we see Heracles driven to destroy his own family by the spirits of madness. He is about to throw his son, whom he holds in his arms, onto the pyre where all of his household goods are already burning. At the door, his terrified wife Megara puts her hand to her head. From the gallery above, Heracles' mother Alcmena and his friend Iolaus observe the scene. To the left, the goddess Mania personifies madness, mania, the goddess Mania. The play being performed might be Heracles by Euripides. In Paestum, in Sicily. Agon. Training, personal effort and competition Agon summoned up the ideal of excellence for Greek men. Foot, horse and chariot races, jumping and throwing contests, and different types of one-on-one combat allow athletes to display their dedication, training, and physical and mental self-control. Palestra, stadia, and hippodromes applauded men's attempt to test their own limit. Sport was the overriding passion of all Greek men. Yeah. In the trials of the contest, greatly desired glory is won by that whose head has worn so many crowns. For winning with his hand and his quick feet. Polemos. The battlefield was the place where the independence of freedom and freedom of the polis and of Greek men was decided. A man proved his mettle as a responsible citizen by helping to defend the city, its ideals, and its way of life. Men would join the cavalry, the light infantry, or the armored infantry, the hoplite phalanxes, depending on how much equipment they could afford. The warrior's send-off was an emotional, ritualized event in which the entire family participated. Death in battle could ensure that he would be remembered as a hero, but war also entailed the most terrible forms of violence. Soldiers won honor and glory, but women, men, and children suffered the disasters of war, pain, and death. Yeah, but war was made so they wouldn't suffer the disasters of the war by others. Yeah. Bueno. Thanatos, eh? Okay. To a young deceased woman, the one allotted beauty, envied among mortals, Theophila, the tenth of the Muses, a grace for her spouse, the very image of prudence. Hades did not seize you with his swarthy hands, but Pluto has lit the wedding torches with his lamp, receiving a most longed for spouse. Parents, leave now the dirges. Cease from your lamenting. Theophila has reached an immortal's bed. Epitaph on a stele at Pantikapeum, Eastern Greece, 3rd century BC. Scylla. Inside it, Scylla sits and yelps, dreadful monster whom no one could face without being terror-struck. She sits deep with her shady cell, no ship ever yet got past her without losing men. It's Homer. Hades, the journey to the afterlife. Although there was no official doctrine in Greece about the afterlife, it was generally believed that death separated the body from the spirit. At that point, the soul embarked on a journey to Hades, the shadowy kingdom of the dead, from which there was no return. Only Hermes, the god of sacred border crossing and changes, could help in the path. Strange, monstrous creatures, the hybrid inhabitants of a world virgin in chaos, sphinxes, sirens, gorgons, and griffins aided the dead along the way. The turbulent waters that led to Hades were populated with marine creatures such as dolphins, tritons, seahorses, nereids, and the monster Scylla, all of which helped the dead souls complete their journey. Eros, the giver of life, knew the outcome. Silence, las praderas sirenas. Earth's virgin daughters, winged maids. Yeah. Minotauro. This well-head, Puteus in Latin, illustrates the extraordinary birth of Athena. The goddess springs fully grown and armed from the head of Zeus. Nike, winged victory, flies to crown her. In the background, Hephaestus, the impromptu midwife, whose axe has split the head of the king of the gods, flees in amazement. Meanwhile, the three Moirai, goddess of the fate of newborns, spin the subtle thread of life. This was found in Rome and brought here at some point. Heracles, the most famous of all Greek heroes, was the embodiment of personal effort and struggle. The only mortal capable of descending to Hades and returning to the world of the living, thus triumphing over death, After treading the agonizing path of suffering to attain perfection, he was rewarded by being admitted to Olympus as an equal of the gods. This was the hero's apotheosis. So these are the works of Hercules. Stealing from Apollo, the tripod from Delphi, fighting with the sons of Euryton, capturing the bandits of Cercopes, fighting the Amazons, that's number 4. So the one in the middle, he's fighting the Amazons, strong woman. No match for Heracles. Capturing the bull of Crete. This is like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Throwing the Erymanthian boar on Eurystheus. Yeah. So he's taking out Cerberus back from Hades, sacando al Cancerbero, the dog, with 2 heads. Heracles llega al Olimpo. Heracles arrives at Olympus. Yeah. Dionysus. Dionysus, one of the most popular deities of the ancient world, was the god of vegetation, the pleasures of wine, transformation, the mask, and theater. His rituals subverted the established order and advocated a return to nature. He liked to gather his followers, satyrs and maenads, in wild settings where they could drink wine and dance to frenzied music that induced madness and trances, ecstasies, abandon, enthusiasm, divine possession. Dionysus encouraged debauchery as an act of liberation. Dionysus married Ariadne and made her immortal. Death was no longer an unavoidable fate for his followers, for he also reached Olympus, gathering men and women, Greeks and non-Greeks in short, anyone capable of breaking free of their constraints. This was the path of tolerance. The path of tolerance. Nah. Doesn't make sense. Okay. Dionysus reaches the Olympus. This is the thing. This is from Attica. Attica is the area of Athens, if you don't know it. 525 to 500 before Christ. So this is the Dionysus reaching Olympus. A lot of vines, lions, boars, animals, flute players, satyrs, satyr person and maenad. Yeah, satyrs. Elysian paradises. Beyond called Hades, the kingdom of shadows, where the sorrowful dead wander, the ancient Greeks imagined a restful, happy place for nobler souls. The Elysian fields, the Fortunate Isles, and the Garden of Hesperides were located at the outer limits of the mythical geography. In these luminous landscapes, men and women who had passed into afterlife spent eternity in blissful happiness. Hidden from the eyes of mortals, these paradises were exuberant. Sensual places where new life never ceased to spring forth. The cosmic force of Eros, the life giver, ruled. Eros in paradise. A paradise with banquets and celebrations and music, constant. Beautiful men, beautiful women, beautiful animals. where generous yields grow in abundance, all sort of fruits, where fountains of pure water flows, where pastures offer a primeval aspect, where well assorted banquets are celebrated, a total absence of afflictions and a sweet existence. There is no crude winter, no hot summer, but it blows a gentle breeze, tempered by the rays of the sun. That's Pseudo-Platon, Axioko 371 CD says. Okay. Invisibilidad femenina, visibilidad masculina. So this is just nonsense, no? Political feminism introduced in archaeology, no? Which I don't think it relates to anything. Well, and not to these pieces, certainly. It's a pity. Nicandre Jaire. It says, I, the Stella, hides Hanatos, who was a consolation to his father, young pride of his fatherland, adept in the Muses' arts, blameless amidst a multitude of fellow citizens, bright star of beauty, in a battle for the fatherland, he was ruined by envious Ares, leaving a bitter gift of tears to poor parents. If Hades delights in tears more than their parents, why do you, O wives, suffer the pains of childbirth? Yeah. Stele of Nicandros, Marble, Peloponnese, 2nd century BC. Orfeos in the underworld. Orfeo en los infiernos. Craters for a man's grave. Monument to a dead warrior. Death was conceived as the ideal rest for the deceased warrior. The weapons that accompany him are symbols of his function in the civic order and of his virtue. The siren sings the funeral lament and waits for him to embark on his journey to the afterlife. Toys. The first glass of wine. These small wine jugs or koes were offered to Athenian children in their turn 3 during Antesteria, the festival of flowering vines. The first ritual taste of wine marked the end of their infancy and publicly acknowledged them as members of the community. Nice. Anacreson says, my temples are grey now, my head is white. Delectable youth is gone, I'm long in the tooth, not much of a sweet life is left. I often weep out loud, afraid of Tartarus. The depths of Hades are dreadful, there are paths for going down, but there is no path for coming up. myth of eternal old age. The rosy goddess of the dawn, Eos, fell in love with the beautiful young boy Titonus. She spirited him away to Olympus and gave him the gift of immortality, but she forgot to give him eternal youth. Titonus was doomed to age eternally, longing for a death that could never come. He regretted not dying in the prime of life and avoiding hateful old age. Titonus, Titonus. The home. Hestia. Hestia, will you tend the holy house of the Lord Apollon? Come now into this house, come with Zeus the all-wise. Draw near, and wilt bestow grace upon my son. Hestia. Peleus, the myth of the wedding of Thetis and Peleus. Peleus abducted Thetis in the presence of her sisters, the Nereids. Afterwards, the lovers celebrated the most glorious wedding in Greek mythology. This depiction, the nuptials, are hinted at by Eros and the dolphin-drawn chariot that will carry the future husband and wife. The idealized image of the myth, commonly featured in wedding gifts, was upheld as a model for the bride in this life-changing transition. Marriage was the rite of passage through which Greek woman entered adult life and confirmed her future success. The song of the bride's friends. As peers the nascent morning, so Helen shone above us, all loveliness and light. We'll go to blossom meads to make scented garlands. We'll be the first to weave you a garland of clover. We'll be the first to take my oil from our silver bowl. Hail, O bride! The bridal bath. The night before her wedding, the bride would walk to the spring, accompanied by her female friends and relatives, a flutist leading the way. There they could draw water for the bathing rituals and store it in Hydrae and the Loutrophoros. Everyone assisted with the future bride's bath. The god Eros gave her guidance. The water symbolized her purity and promise to bring fertility. In the morning she would leave her girlhood behind. The bridal procession, el cortejo nupcial. Las novias salían de sus habitaciones y eran acompañadas por la ciudad a la luz de las antorchas encendidas. Se oían repetidos cantos de himeneo, jóvenes danzantes formaban ruedos, entre ellos sonaban flautas y cítaras, y las matronas miraban el espectáculo desde los vestíbulos de la casa. Wedding night. Love shook my heart like the wind on the mountain rushing over the oak trees. Sappho. The kiss. The kiss. Eros.